Hey everybody, it's Wade here, and whoa, it's another ROA remix? One of these things that we haven't done. Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm talking about this episode here was Necessary Evil. So, get ready for the old ROA where we just like gush about how we love something. This doesn't feel right. Okay, well, maybe I'll talk to you on the back end. All right.
Hey Peter Allan Fields, this is a good episode I guess. Oh yeah, it has intrigue and revelations and movement and character arcs. Oh yeah, but would it have killed you to have had a silly story about Bashir flirting with girls? It's time for the rules of acquisition.
Hello and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition, a podcast where we'll be going through every single episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is right now my favorite show in the world. It's the best show ever. I like the show a lot. I will just jump into it. With me, as always, is James Nolan.
Hey, hello.
And Hugh Crawford.
Hello, gentlemen.
And my name is Wade Bowen. And that's right, we're talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We're well into Season 2. We're talking about an episode called Necessary Evil, right?
Yes, Necessary Evil. It's Season 2, Episode 8. This episode originally aired on November 14th, 1993. We are almost out of 1993.
We're still in 93?
Yes.
We're still in 93, November 14th.
Oh, man.
The IMDb description is as follows. Odo relives some terrible and tragic memories of a past investigation when he was a constable on Cardassian occupied Deep Space Nine, then named Terok Nor. Yeah, so here we have a episode that this is easily one of the best episodes in my opinion.
Oh,
this
yeah.
season, right?
I say it every time we get to an episode I like, but this is my favorite episode.
Well, here's the thing, is that it is strangely ROM heavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think says something about...
You don't like ROM?
Oh, I love ROM. I love ROM and Quark. I've always advocated for more ROM.
That's true.
I think we could go back through our archives, and I think that he should have a running motif where he tries to kill his brother every...
That's right.
Yes.
And I think this episode would have fit that a little bit, but...
It was a long look at the Rom's murderous love of Quark.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. But this is mainly a flashback episode where we have to go back into the past and uncover little bits of information about Odo initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That answers most of the early questions we had in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sort of head-scratchy conversations we had in the first 7 episodes.
Yeah, what's Kira's story? We harp on Kira all the time.
Yeah. I asked for like a crystalline moment in Kira's past that would have shown what she had to go through and how tough she had to be to withstand it. This is definitely that episode that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Well, and not to get into it that much, at the beginning, this episode looks to be a primarily an Odo episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where you think this is just going to...
Odo Quark.
The Kira thing is a third act turn.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a second act. In the second act, then you realize that Kira plays a factor into the story at all.
It pays off on subsequent watches, I noticed after watching it a second time. It has a different dynamic because this episode goes full noir, full film noir. This is a total film noir episode, and it plays all the tropes of film noir. It's a Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It starts off with a Lana Turner scene.
Femme
With
fatale.
a femme fatale. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Quark is a Peter Lorre
Mm-hmm.
type character.
Peter Lorre gets murdered, and then you have
Philip Marlowe.
Philip Marlowe, yes.
Philip Marlowe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's, and I think this is the first point what I would bring up is that Peter Allan Fields also was a famous ghostwriter for Columbo.
Oh, really?
In the 70s.
Whoa.
Yeah, and to the point where there's a full-on Columbo sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's like, one more thing. I'm just following up. I'm just, and he does the one more thing that gets the clue. I mean, that was, so Peter Allan Fields, who seems to, if you look at
Yeah, I was going to choose this episode to present my theory that Peter Allan Fields is the Nicholas Meyer of Deep Space Nine. He's the best writer of any of Deep Space Nine. He's the guy that you want to tell the best stories. The best DS9 comes from Peter Allan Fields.
Yeah.
But he maybe gets thwarted later on.
He gets fired at the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Thwart. He still has some more scripts to come. So if you're a Peter Allan Fields fan, keep listening. We're going to cover some more of his stuff. But yes,
and they're good. But he's out of the room. Yeah, at the end of the season. Okay, so Peter Allan Fields was. I imagine it's something another parallel. I read comic books. We all read comic books. I don't know if our listeners do, but I imagine that
they're okay with it. I think
there was a time in 1984 when Alan Moore was writing every 6th issue of Green Lantern.
Really?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I like Alan Moore, and I know we have our history talking about Alan Moore comic books and going on runs before eBay was a thing. But I don't know. I didn't know this part.
Yeah, I imagine that I don't read those 1983 Green Lanterns, but I assume that it was kind of like bearable baseline shit. And then the Alan Moore storylines are pretty famous for being like really interesting. Some of his first American writing, and the first sort of American people sort of getting that.
Oh, was this before Swamp Thing?
Yeah, this was before. This was right before Swamp Thing. So I think that it was probably like that. It's also where he worked with Dave Gibbons. But I imagine that reading those comic books for the first time was like these episodes, where if you go back and look over the last few episodes that we've done, you have Progress, which was a really good script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a really great. And then you go on, and then it's a bunch of shit. And then it's Duet, which is one of the best, and Peter Allan Field. And then you have The Circle, which is another great sort of episode. And then we go through some not so great episodes. And now it's this, and it's like, why is this at such a much higher level than anything? It's not just a better episode than what's around it. It's so much of a better episode than what's around it.
It really is.
Yeah, that it's got to be like, I don't know, he had to be just all of the talent in that show, in that writer's room.
Yeah, it's operating on a few different levels here, more than you could ask for your basic like Star Trek television show.
Oh yeah. Like so much of my favorite things are, I don't know, there's something about noir that really works for me. Like Brick, I really love that movie, and it's noir but set in high school, but it's like it works really well. And when you take other genres like a high school film or Star Trek and then slap a noir filter over it and tell an episode that way, I just love that shit. And my God, because I love this episode so much. Like I've said before, I think every time I really like something, I want to say it's my favorite of the thing ever. But even just going back, we go back to it, it's a noir episode and it's a noir thing. It always starts with a woman. It always starts with a dame. Mm-hmm. It opens up, it's a dark and stormy night on Bajor for some reason. And Quark is talking to a femme fatale.
Oh, and she's got to go do crack about the Cardassians, or somebody makes a crack about the Cardassians, about like, say what you will about the Kardashians, they knew how to keep the power on.
Yeah, I read that too. Like the Nazis. They made the trains run on time.
Well, and that's the thing is that that tells you right there that somebody's already sympathetic towards.
Yeah.
She's longing for the days of the Cardassian occupation.
Right. She tipped her hand a little bit there, is what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she charges Quark with going to retrieve a box from the station,
pencil case,
where she and her husband used to have a chemist shop, right?
For 5 bars of gold pressed latinum, which is the standard price for anything that you ever ask for. If you want to know the right price for a Ferengi, just say 5 bars of gold pressed latinum. You're golden.
It's the 10 grand.
And then he like suggestively rubbed his ears after that conversation, like he was hoping to get like a ear rub before going back up. And I could have done without that.
No, was that, or doesn't he have a little thing that he does when he agrees to do something? Like he does I've noticed that before, not when he's not begging for umox or whatever.
Yeah,
but like
I think that's what he was doing. But you think that it's a tick, like an actor's choice?
I think it's
well, Ferengis grab their ears whenever anything happens. That's like them grabbing their dicks or something.
But even if you were like going, I don't know, man. I don't know how to seduce anybody, admittedly. But like, I would imagine it wouldn't be like if somebody wants me to do a favor, I would just go walk up and start rubbing my dick. Yeah. But that's the equivalent of what he does at the end of that scene.
Don't sell yourself short, Hugh.
All right, well,
know exactly how to seduce a Ferengi.
We don't need.
You go up and start stroking his ears, and you're gold. That's all you have to do.
Yeah,
we settled that like way back in that Q episode.
That's so fun. That's so. But the the Ferengi doesn't typically start stroking their own ears to get the party started.
Well, who knows?
And that's what bothers me, I guess.
You got to make suggestions. Yeah. So he goes there, and that's when there's for a long time. It's like a Rom and Quark comedy thing.
Right, well, they have the Quark and Femme Fatale scene. They have the credit sequence, and then they jump straight into a fucking noir voiceover, which is the first time we have Odo giving full Sam Spade thing. And he is kind of bitchy about it.
Which is fitting with his character. I like how he ended the log with just saying that everything was under control. So he has this long preamble about how he has to make the log. And then when he finally, the only thing about the day is just like one line about everything in the station.
Yeah. Right. He's totally passive aggressive. He, like, well, this Commander Cisco says I have to make a log because these Federation types have to write everything down and they don't trust my very adequate memory. It's not good enough for them. So, sure, I'll do what they want. Fine.
Right.
Whatever.
So they get in and they get the pencil case. It's just got the names.
Oh, yeah. Though,
yeah.
Then they jump to the Rom Quark theft scene. And I think this is the first time that we have Idiot Savant Rom. We've had Idiot Rom.
Yes, absolutely.
It was mentioned in a scene where Nog says that his father is a technical genius.
Right.
But no one respects him.
Yeah, but who cares? It's his dad.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a setup in that sequence of why Nog wanted to do... Wait, am I imagining that episode?
You might be. I don't know.
No. I think that happened early in season 1.
Why? No, it was why does he want to learn to read? Right?
I think so. I think you're right on.
But even him being a genius, technically, still, this is the first time. Like, he's very good at engineering.
Yeah,
maybe. But at the same time, this is the first. We've always had dumb Rom. Mm-hmm. Dumb Rom has always been a thing. This is the first time that they kind of mesh a little bit to where he's dumb about reading the issues, but smart about like breaking into things or, I've learned, that I have a de-sealer rod right here to break into your safe. And Quark is very pissed off about that. And then we have magnesite drops and duranium, which is a close alloy, or duranium, I assume, alloy to unobtainium from... Avatar.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of this is a setup that they're looking to get this note. And then as soon as they find it, and this is what was the first thing that was kind of interesting to me, a guy walks in who you see earlier in the pre-credit scene as being in the room with the Lana Turner character. He comes in and just kills Quark. Basically.
Yeah, he totally. And this is the first time I feel like in all of Star Trek that he's not a red shirt that we know died. You either get shot and then just kind of stand up and go, oh, no, I'm okay, or you die immediately.
Yeah.
Well, and this is also the first time that I think that Bashir's actually dealt with an actual medical emergency. A lot of his capacity has been for research, like to go find out why, something happens. This guy's a clone. Let me go back here and study.
That he stumbles into. Even.
Right. I think this is his first time actually you can actually see him in action as a doctor.
Yeah.
It's saving a lot.
Yeah, saving somebody. Yeah.
Right. In an emergency situation, which is weird because Bones was only doing emergency situations, and here we have episode 8 of season 2 in the Star Trek Federation Doctor has his first real emergency.
Yeah.
Well, I think that maybe they overpowered the state of medical care
probably
in the Next Generation.
Yeah, totally.
Probably.
They can revive anybody anywhere. We just rebuild them.
Exactly. So now this is the first time that someone was hit with a full kill phaser blast that, you have to like actually deal with it.
Right.
Like a point blank kill phaser blast.
But usually they just vaporize immediately and without even any doctor intervention. They just either get up or say, take me to sick bay, please. And they stumble away or else they die and they're gone. But this time.
So I was actually thinking that at the time, I mean, I know Quark doesn't die, but I was thinking back if you had watched it at the time, that actually would have been thrilling.
It would have been because they do it so much better. Like, and I even noticed when he gets shot with the little phaser blast or whatever, I don't know how they did it that well. The effects for that shot, they don't just make the actor do a little oof like they usually do and fall down. They do a whole effects shot where he gets blown away several feet.
Yeah.
Like
right.
Nowadays.
Did they do wire fu?
Yeah, well,
did they do wire
I don't
fu?
trust that they knew how to do wire fu, like have people on cords.
Yeah.
That was like a late 90s, early aughts thing. That was like Matrix when they figured out how to do that. That it was only like Hong Kong films doing that. So I don't know what they...
That's true. They probably didn't spend the money on that.
Yeah, I don't know what they did to get that shot, but it's a great shot that they pull him back and they shoot. I'm sure they did some rack focus or something, but they didn't green screen it because they were on their regular set. And I was like, oh, that's actually impressive, because usually they just have a guy go, ooh, and fall down and then stand up a little bit later. When he gets shot and then he's lying there, not with his eyes closed like an unconscious guy, but with like his eyes open like somebody who's dead. And then Rom runs in, somebody's killed my brother! And it's actually, you think he might actually be dead. Like they pulled the rug out from under you. Of course they didn't, because it's 1993. They don't do that to their main characters who are on the credit list. But at the same time, like, that's the best, and it's the most actually somebody actually getting shot in the whole series. Because most of the time, people have been shot like dozens of times already on Deep Space Nine. They just fall over and, it's inconsequential.
Right.
But this feels like they may have actually killed Quark, which is a big...
which is thrilling. Yeah, I would have loved that. I would have absolutely loved that they had done that.
Yeah, and impressive that they can make you think that with their main characters.
You can actually get through this sort of idea that, like, you could go through a period where this is Rom's period. Rom takes over the bar, and for a season or two, Rom is the main character, and then he brings on a secondary, and then that Rom is killed off. If there was a revolving Ferengi presence in the bar,
that would have been funny. Yeah,
that would have been fun. You would have had these different eras, and how they got killed would have been interesting.
Yeah, and then they go straight to the interrogation scene after Bashir drags him off to the, like, oh no, we got to get him into surgery, and then Sisko and Odo do the best fucking good cop bad cop. It's really great.
Yeah, I love that they don't even bother to set it up that they're doing that.
No,
they don't.
As an audience member, it takes a second for you to realize what they're doing without even knowing it.
Yeah, that when I was first watching it and Sisko started coming to the fits, his son is a friend of my boys. And I'm like, wait, he's already tried to kill his brother, Sisko. What the fuck are you talking about? And then I was like, and then I felt like a goober. I was
like, oh my god, oh no.
Yeah.
Cisco's totally being good. Yeah. And then like,
you got me, Sisko.
Yeah, it's like, the 139th rule of acquisition, which is wives serve, brothers inherit. I had to write that down.
Yeah, Odo, that was the first time we've been delivered by a non-Ferengi.
Yeah.
So Odo.
And it's interesting to me that Odo knows that.
He's been
you get the feeling that Odo knows them all.
He's been reading up on it.
He probably does. He's got a good memory.
Yeah.
And also I like speaking of idiot savant Rom, he's a smart guy. This is the first time, because the whole time he's been sniveling like, no, I only learned how to do these things because I'm your brother and I love you, and you were gone sometimes, and then sometimes sometimes I had to reach in to open the things when you weren't there or whatever. And then, but then when they start playing good cop, bad cop on him, he's like, wives serve, brothers inherit. And then Odo, being bad cop, says, I don't think you're as stupid as you make out to be. And then Rom's like, no, I am too.
I'm exactly that stupid,
yeah. And then Sisko comes in holding his hand to his chest, being classic Avery Brooks, overacting a little to an extent, but it's not overacting because it's delightful.
Yes, you had to make it personal.
Yeah.
So then we get they go to the storeroom, and that elicits our first transition into the past.
Yes.
And you get surprise Gul Dukat.
Yeah.
They just open a door and walk through, and then Gul Dukat's there.
Right.
But I have to say, all of these transitions into the pre-Federation Terok Nor, I wish the show was set in this era. It's lit. Interestingly.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because, the show has this bland, typical TV lighting, 80s, 90s bland wash lighting.
Oh, yeah.
But Terok Nor, which is in the same scenes, Quark's bar, Odo's office, all of the scenes are set in the same places. But it's lit so interestingly.
It's wonderful. I assume it's because they sold it as a noir episode, so we're gonna have dark lighting, and it's all blue lights, and it's like it's dark and everything. But yeah,
it looks like Blade Runner.
It's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
And they're working in the same sets, but they get such good tone.
Yeah.
That's why I stand by this might be my favorite episode, because it does what it's doing so well. And I love noir stuff.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of sort of modern, it pushes that boundary. Just on like things like set lighting. The difference in that I was noticing is that like now you have there's a lot of shows that everything takes place on one set.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it off screen, but like West Wing was a show that all took place in the West Wing, in these small little offices and corridors in the Oval Office. And so they lit it really interestingly with all of these different tones so that it wasn't just bland. It didn't feel like a sitcom taking place in just a bunch of mauve rooms. rooms, which is probably what the West Wing is in real life. But they said it in these ways where Toby's office feels different than and everybody's office has a feel and a different tone, and it's lit within an inch of its life. And that's how modern TV makes a show seem more cinematic. Breaking Bad, obviously, was cinematographied out its ass. And that was the first time that you see that they got, even Michael Piller was even commenting that they were really happy that the director of the episode, I believe his name's James Conway.
Yep, that's right.
Pushed to get great lighting. Pushed all of the DPs on the show to light it in this really interesting way.
Oh, yeah.
And so he finally got it. And it was the first visually interesting setting on this show, I feel.
Yeah, it really is. And then the costumes are great. We've got Odo in a robe that's almost like a trench coat, like a noir thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got that high collar.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And then we have Gul Dukat in his element as the commander of Terok Nor.
Yes. So Gul Dukat has called Odo out to figure out a murder that has taken place in Terok Nor. That murder was the husband of the Lana Turner character.
Yeah, Vatrick.
Yeah.
Mrs. Vatrick, I guess.
Yeah, there's Mrs. Vatrick, and then they refer to them interchangeably in the episode, which makes it confusing. There's the body Vatrick, the dead man, and he wants Odo to investigate that because he believes that he's an impartial observer. And it's kind of weird. Odo doesn't know why he's commissioned. Odo's never been used like that before. He's not like a police officer.
Yeah, this whole thing sets up Odo's character so well. Of why he's the best investigator and why he's good at his job.
Yeah.
And seeing things because he's been trying to pretend to be a humanoid for so long, so he notices things people don't, and he's an outsider, so he doesn't have a side or another.
Yeah. So he eventually, I guess, agrees because he feels like he doesn't have anything, and then it turns out that basically the rest of the episode is what happened in this murder and how does it inform what happened to Quark.
Real quick, I want to get in. It also is a really good character moment for Gul Dukat.
It totally is, yeah.
Because every time he does something like this, he always likes to paint himself as really a softie at heart. He could have his people come in and kill random Cardassians, but doing it this way is quieter.
Yeah.
Having Odo do it is a more humane way of dealing with the situation. And he always likes to set things up that he's on the side of doing things humane and civilized way.
Yeah.
But he's really not.
That's
his favorite cover. He's done this over and over. Remember whenever he returned, when he didn't start a war, when Kira went and got that one freedom? He made it seem like, oh, what a terrible thing. We didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, by our bad. Formal apology.
Yeah.
He always wants to seem like a humanitarian.
Yeah, and he can read people so well.
I was just going to say, more than anything, Gul Dukat, more than any other villain in Star Trek up to this point and probably ever, Gul Dukat is the hero of his own story.
Totally, yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
And he can read people so well. He saw, like, Odo when he was doing the Cardassian Neck Trick for Bajorans or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I saw you, and then I heard that you walked out on your Bajoran keepers. So I have decided that you would be a great investigator. So I'm going to have you do it.
He was also solving, it seems like Bajorans were flocking to him to solve like these little small interpersonal disputes.
Right. That's the thing.
He was already serving as like a small claims court, which tees up a great Gul Dukat line where he goes, I guess they look at me as a neutral observer. And he goes, because you're not one of them.
Yeah.
And he says, and aren't you glad of that? Or something like that.
Aren't you glad you're, because he's a Nazi. He's a racist.
He's a racist. Yeah.
Well, that and Odo, he can't scare or intimidate Odo.
He still kind of does, though. Like, I feel like...
Well, yeah. Well, when they bring him in,
ultimately, you're right. Ultimately, he does. But I think it was getting Odo up to that point.
And he even says, you're not even scared of me. That's one of the things that impresses him. But at the same time, Renee Auberjonois is doing such a great job of playing the differences between Odo in the quote-unquote present when we know him and in the flashback. He's in his badass like robes.
Yeah.
And he's also just like looking down and subservient, like it's like, I don't want to be here. Oh, I'm not going to work for you, but I realize that you're the ones in power. And just the everybody, I'll say not just Odo, everybody we know from the main cast who has this flashback in this episode is doing a fucking amazing job.
Yeah.
And their differences in how they play their characters.
And we're about to see a new one because almost as soon as he gets out and starts the investigation, he interviews with the wife.
Right.
we've seen already, and she's saying that he's been having a long affair over the last couple of weeks.
Right.
With this girl, and points to her and goes, "That girl right there!" And the camera turns.
Right there. A lesser writer in that situation, because we've had all these characters, would have said, written it as like, "Oh, he was having an affair? Who was he having an affair with?" And a lesser writer would have said, "I know who it is. Her name is blank."
Yeah.
But no, Peter Allan Fields, who is the best, says, "I don't know her name, but I can point her out to you."
Yeah.
So they have a whole other 2 minute or 30 seconds at least, probably a minute at least scene where they have to walk over to point out to who the woman her husband's having an affair with is. And she points over, and it's Kira Nerys.
It's Kira Nerys.
Yeah, lesser writer. Yes, her name is Kira Nerys. It's like, no, that doesn't do that. They just point over there. And
So yeah, no, it's and she looks different. She's got long hair.
She's got a wig on, a good wig, but
yeah, it is a good wig.
And then we have a commercial break because they know what they're doing. They're not idiots.
Yeah, they're gonna make that paper.
Yeah. So they know how to write a 5-act structure out of a 3-act. Yeah. So Odo walks over to her. They start having this sort of interesting back and forth. She says that the old man had, basically she's saying she's innocent. She was there to look for a job at Quark's, and because it was a no questions asked sort of situation. She thinks Odo's propositioning her for sex. There's a lot of hidden sex.
Yeah,
that
really
makes it extra noir. Is there's lots of sexual themes, like sexual suggestions, all throughout the whole episode, and that's one of them where she assumes that I guess Bajoran women are treated poorly in this culture,
right?
And she's one of
and the Cardassians are kind of horny for him because even back in the Circle, was it the
where she was playing like a prostitute?
Yeah, like where she was in an internment camp, and apparently Cardassians like to fuck Bajorans or something.
Yeah,
whatever.
So, and that was a reoccurrence of that. And through that, it's a really great sort of opening scene. You're watching the first time Kira and Odo have talked.
Yeah.
And up until this point, I feel like the show has always been like this, telling me that Kira and Odo have a strong bond without me actually having seen it.
Right.
Or sort of understand the concept, like the tones of it and what kind of relationship they have. This is the first time where you get to see their first sort of occurrences together, and that it's a joy in that way. It's just from a storytelling perspective. I now know these characters enough that it's past time that we explore their history. And so it's great finally that we're getting to do that. So they have this really great little scene and back and forth, and she tells him that she's trying to work at Quark's and that she couldn't have killed the guy. He's been trying to impress her, she says. And he may wanted to fuck her, but it never got to that.
Yeah. And I'll say, given the noir structure of this whole episode, it really, on repeated viewings, we've shit on Nana Visitor. She does a great job.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. She's great in this episode.
Yeah, yeah,
she
there's different. You notice different things on a rewatch that the actor was doing that the actor knew that you don't know on the first watch. It's great.
Yeah. So Odo goes to Quark's to back up the alibi, and it turns out that Quark said that she was there and she was giving him a blowjob. Basically.
Yeah. After Kira has already set up. Yeah. I don't do that.
Yes.
When Odo sits down, like, no, I'm not going to fuck you. I don't do that for money or food or anything. And then he goes to Quark to figure out her alibi, and he's like, oh yeah, she showed me a good time, basically.
Yeah. And that she was giving him a blowjob for a job.
Or she was she was jacking off his ears or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. It was sex, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was definitely sex.
And that was a weird thing where it was ultimately showing Kira as sort of, I mean, I know it was all in context, and ultimately she comes out pretty chaste from all of this. Well, except for, no, not really. But, it was showing a major character on a Star Trek show as really sexually pliant for what I would imagine is 1993 television.
Right.
Where she's trading all of these sex for favors, or she's existing in a world where she's accused of having an affair, which she could be lying about or not. And then she says, go to Quark, he'll back up my story. Quark says she's having sex with him. So there's all of these different...
Well...
Yeah, and then I know it all turns out as a smoke
I don't think Kira is ever on board with any of that.
No, I thought
she doesn't know the alibi Quark's giving for her.
Well, I thought she worked it out with him.
Well, she knew...
I think this is the first time... She paid for an alibi.
She didn't pay for that alibi.
Well, yeah, that's true.
That's the way I read it, because she has such a strong... As soon as Odo sits down, she's about to punch him in the face. And then also Odo's amazing detective skills.
Yeah.
Like, one, he notices that Vatric's wife, her tear ducts weren't swelled, so she wasn't crying.
Yeah.
And then he notices, no, you did not work in the mines, Kira Nerys, because your hands are great. And he's like, okay, you're right. I worked on a reclamation plant. Oh, why did you get fired from the reclamation plant? Oh, because the guy tried what you tried when you sat down, or I thought he did, that he was trying to fuck me, and then I punched him.
Yeah.
Which...
So all of that stuff is great. It also highlights, because Quark is trying to tempt Odo first with alcohol and second with food, and then whores. And the look on Odo's face, also, it's sort of set up the theme throughout the show, which is, they dealt with it before, specifically in The Forsaken, but that Odo is somewhat sexually isolated.
Yeah.
And that's a part of his character. And that was a scene where they sort of set that up. So...
Right.
I liked that was a loaded and interesting scene for Star Trek, and how much subtext was, and text and subtext was pretty adult.
Yeah. Vatric even asked him, like, why do men act this way? He's like, honestly, lady, I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about the alibi gets busted, and Gul Dukat is pretty happy with Odo's progress, but wants to know specifics about...
No, we had his first encounter with Kira, and then we jump back to...
We're talking about the alibi being broken, though, right? Or he gets the information out of Quark.
It's in the Quark scene that it's broken.
What, Kira's alibi?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like a few scenes ahead, I thought.
No.
Because then you have the hypno...
No.
You have the hypno-regression therapy with Rom to remember Cesaro.
That's how he breaks the alibi.
Or whatever. Cesso.
Oh, and the future storyline.
Because, then you have... Well, yeah, maybe you're right. I can't remember.
No, I think it's broken in that scene, and then you go back to the future,
and
then it's the Quark, and then the hypno regression scene, and the name of Chesso comes up.
Yeah, and then Kira comes in and says, "Oh, my contacts might know that name or something, maybe." And then Kira gives a nice dual layered performance, talking about how Odo helped her out back then. And she says, I would have been executed. She gives him a look and is like, well, you were innocent. And then she says, like, the Cardassians didn't make a difference about that. It wouldn't have mattered to the Cardassians. And then she says, well...
You were innocent of the crime you were accused of.
Yeah. And then she says, it wouldn't have mattered to the Cardassians. And then Odo says, well, it mattered to me because he's the guy that cares about justice.
Yeah. So... Then he goes on, and after he gets the name, he goes back to the Lana Turner character, Vatric, Mrs. Vatric, and reads her a name, and then does the Columbo thing, noticing that her money,
right.
she's come into money. He's noticed that.
And then he goes to Quark before that, and then Quark turns it back on Odo, like, well, why did the Dukat ask you to do this? And then it brings up more questions, right?
No, Quark is dead.
No, in the flashback.
Or in the
flashback. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's this noir plot. It gets so convoluted.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter the order, but all that shit did happen.
Yeah. But basically, it turns out that the people that are on the list and are now currently being killed off, because it turns out that as soon as Kira comes back, she's like, "Oh, I figured out who the Chesso was. It was really this guy named Cesario, and he was probably a war collaborator, and he was just killed last night." Which sort of puts sort of a quick clock on the whole investigation, because everybody on this list could be getting killed.
Right.
So,
then Odo immediately realizes why he got killed, because, it's because I mentioned it to this woman last night.
Yeah, so he starts putting her on strong investigation.
Yeah.
And he goes on, and then at some point, and I can't remember what, it sort of stops, and it just looks at Odo's face like he's realized something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that was some good acting. And then he sort of, at that point, sort of realizes what the ultimate reveal of the show is. But at that point, it goes back to the past, and he's interviewing Kira about her broken alibi.
Right.
So we go back to the past. And in that's when she breaks down further and basically admits that she was on Deep Space Nine to create some sabotage.
Right.
And that was really her alibi.
She is a rebel. She's a terrorist. Yeah. She was, and then she has
which we all knew at this point. We all knew this at this point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's in there.
Yeah, and
we always said that Kira has been
in the shit.
And we finally have proof that she's been in the shit. And then also, we can even forgive her for that time when they found Gul Dukat's records and she was not worth even noticing. And everybody was laughing at her because everybody was like, oh, she thought she was hot shit, but Gul Dukat realizes that she wasn't anything. She wasn't a threat to anybody. He just thought she was a minor nuisance. She's going to be upset because she was not as hot shit as she thinks she is. But turns out Gul Dukat just didn't know what she had done.
Exactly.
Right. She was good at her job. I mean, if she was
underground.
If she was on his radar.
Yeah, what do they say? Famous good pirates. The difference between pirates and smugglers.
Which is a big reveal because up until this point, I just assumed that Gul Dukat was right because she was not giving as great a performance back then, and I thought, yeah, of course she was a shitty terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, yeah. But no, so it goes, so like she's saying that he does, Odo, to his own satisfaction, does research whether there was sabotage that night on the ship, and she knows a lot about when and where it happened. So that all sort of meshes. So it looks to Odo like she committed sabotage. She was there to fuck with Cardassians, and that is an alibi for the murder, which is he's there to really solve. So around this moment, Gul Dukat walks in and goes, is this the woman? And sort of trying to force Odo's hand to give him a
name.
Yeah, a suspect. Yeah, and he says, he backs her up and he goes, no, she did not kill. And he goes, you believe her? And he goes, yes.
And the whole time when she tells him a not quite truth, it's a really good shot and staging. Mm-hmm. He's behind her. She's looking forward. She does not look him in the eyes, which I just thought was a good directorial choice, but whatever.
Then Odo, it goes to the future Odo of giving this really good speech about justice and about how like he's got such a strong justice trick is what he calls it, I believe. Right? The justice trick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's another voiceover.
Yeah. And he goes into this whole little thing.
Maybe it's a racial memory from my people, or something.
Yeah. So maybe all of these shapeshifters are heavily justice oriented, which is a seed for. They're starting to throw seeds now, which we debated on whether they were.
Well, also, it's like they have to remind you. You know, they haven't played the shapeshifter a man alone card in a long time in the series, so they have to remind you that Odo doesn't know where he came from.
Yeah,
and that's one storytelling, way of doing.
And they play it so well.
But it also tips the hand for later. Yes,
they play it so well this episode. Like, that's why he's good at investigating. He has to learn what humanoids are like. He can be impartial because he's not one of them. And it's the justice trick, he says in his voiceover, like a full noir voiceover. Like, is it a racial memory? Is it a clue? I don't care. But anyway, it was great.
Yeah, and so that is the moment that Odo realizes everything.
Yeah.
If you go back, when you watch it the second time, he does a full, he's a good actor. He doesn't play it like a little light bulb went off in his head. But that's exactly what it was going on in that scene. And it was really subtle. But it was a scene where he figures everything out. But then I think this is when we get to the comedy scene of Quark getting murdered, re-murdered, where the Johnny Ola sneaks in to put the pillow over Quark's head, and
and then Rom wanders in, and the Ferengi defense mechanism is just a scream.
Yes. So he does this ridiculous comedy laugh. System. He does this ridiculous comedy laugh. And that brings everybody in, and
it's really obnoxious.
Yes,
it's super obnoxious. Sorry.
Yes, and so they bring everybody in, so they were able to sort of save Quark at the last minute, thanks to Rom's obnoxious. You want to do it?
I apologize to everyone, but it's the first. I feel like it's the first stabbing we have pre-Klingon.
So
because the guy comes in because he can't wield a phaser apparently to get it past the systems. He stabs the Bajoran guy in sickbay.
Yes,
and then Rom screams.
And then Odo says,
"I'm so sorry."
Odo says, "Well, Rob, you saved your brother's life. I guess you won't be getting that bar after all." And to which,
and then it clicks like that he fucked up.
That he fucked up. That
I actually like
that his instinct is to save his brother's life, even though none of his self-interest is in keeping his brother alive.
Right.
So as soon as he realizes that, he makes the shrieking sound again.
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize again. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. But I did love that bit of comic relief, and I love that alien psychology for Ferengis.
Yeah.
that they would have that duality, and also that they have that defense mechanism is that then just screaming, because Rom's already done it Quark has already done that earlier on in that 3-episode opener for the season. They already showed that when Ferengis are in distress, they just scream in the most annoying fashion possible.
Which is a sensible evolutionary trait. That makes sense. That's a perfectly
that actually doesn't bother me as much as
evolutionary traits.
Traits that some of the aliens have, right? Or lack of evolutionary traits.
That's one of my favorite thing about the Ferengis. That actually makes sense. Finally, something makes sense from an evolutionary perspective with an alien in Star Trek.
Yes, that's a defense. But other animal species have that. So you immediately, basically, they're wrapping it up pretty quick after this point. They catch the guy. They realize that the guy's had contact with the Lana Turner character. They go back to Bajor to arrest her. She's there. She makes like a half-assed defense. I don't know that guy, and I don't know why you're arresting me. And Odo lays out all of the evidence he's acquired off screen, which is pretty damning. And then she gets in a cell, and she turns to Odo, and she goes, I don't care how much evidence you have. You'll never find evidence that I killed my husband because I didn't. In which Odo looks at her, and he goes, I know.
Yeah.
And then, you see Kira's face do like a double take.
Like,
she does a full double take at Odo, and it's revealed that Kira killed the guy. Yeah, and he knew, and he's known that for a couple of scenes now.
Yeah,
and they have an amazing scene together. The scene that follows. It's just really good writing.
Yeah, it's classic Peter Allan Field's ambiguity.
Yeah, no, it's really great. Where she says, how long have you known? And he says, I figured it out 2 scenes ago. And
as soon as you said Cesaro, I knew that your contacts that you quoted knew about him would only know that if he were a collaborator.
Yeah.
Therefore, you killed the collaborator because you were a terrorist. His wife was getting a sweet deal out of the collaborator. She likes the money and the private quarters. She would not have killed her husband for that deal. You would have, because you were fighting the Cardassians.
Yeah. And she goes, she tells the story that her job wasn't to kill the guy. Her job was to steal the pencil case with the names behind the panel. Mm-hmm. But she got caught and in self-defense ended up killing him.
Yeah. And it makes sense why she infiltrated as a woman who was seducing Patrick.
Sure.
Because how else?
And then he goes, why didn't you tell me? Or why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I've grown to respect you so much that I didn't. Basically, I didn't want to lose our friendship that we had.
Right. It was like, well, first she says, you were working for the Cardassians. Yeah. It's like, well, I haven't been working for the Cardassians for over a year now.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, you're my friend. I wanted you to, respect me still. He
says, I haven't been working for the Cardassians for all of 1993.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, so she...
And then she says, will you ever be able to trust me again?
And I forget.
And then they does leave that classic Peter Allan Field's ambiguity.
Yeah. Because she was a much better liar. You're a much better liar than I thought you were, is what he said.
Yeah, and we've already established how great Odo is at reading people with whether people have been crying or not because their glands aren't swollen or not.
Yeah.
So he is a masterful reader of that shit.
Yeah, and he's got that he had some sort of blind spot.
She fooled him.
And I think that it's this sort of the start of a... I'm just going to say, I think this is the start of their
relationship is...
Shippers are coming on board to the Odo and Kira sort of thing. Right, so that's...
Boo.
Yeah, which is a thing. But nonetheless, it sort of starts in this scene, in this episode. But nonetheless, it was also damn satisfying. It was at the end of this when I realized that Peter Allan Fields has wrote all of the great Kira episodes, from Progress to Duet to Circle to this.
Yeah,
he kind of owns her.
It's when you realize he's written all of the great episodes so far, whether or not they're Kira episodes.
Yeah, that's true. He writes in the Pale Moonlight, which didn't have Kira in it at all, I don't think.
Right. Well, even up until now, he wrote Dax, which was also with one of the great Star Trek writers, DC Fontana.
Yeah.
But he wrote the screenplay for that, which is all right, which is okay. As for a Dax episode, it's pretty great. And then he wrote, all the best ones up until then. And yeah, he's in his 80s at this point.
Holy smokes.
At some point, I need to find a place to point out that this script was actually ruined Rick Berman saw the finished episode and cut a vital scene from it that no one's seen.
Ever?
No one's ever seen this scene, but it takes place right after Odo has let Kira go and saying that he thinks she's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and follows Gul Dukat, Odo does, in the past, and finds Gul Dukat that goes to the Lana Turner character, the wife, room, and fucks her.
Whoa.
What?
Yes. They're having a long-term affair. You see in the show, you see Gul Dukat leave and give her like a post-coital, like a clearly we fucked kiss.
Oh my God.
That was murdered, and Rick Berman made that decision, backed by Ira Bear.
Really?
And Michael Piller was the only guy who's went on record as saying, he says, Necessary Evil is one of our best shows we did, and we've still killed it. We still murdered it. It could have been better.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it has a much more complete storyline, if you think about it. And it has this sort of, because there's all these questions asked. Why does Gul Dukat want Odo to do the investigation? Why isn't Gul Dukat more interested in killing the wife? Why isn't, there's all of these sort of interesting storylines.
Wow.
And why is Odo allowed to just drop it?
Wow.
Because Odo says at one point that he's never closed this case.
Yeah.
Yes. But he got to stay on, they didn't ship him off. Gul Dukat didn't start just murdering Bajorans to find, the case just ended. And you have to think that Odo just says all evidence pointed towards the wife, and Gul Dukat dropped it.
Wow. Okay, that is amazing.
And it's the introduction to Gul Dukat likes to fuck Bajorans.
All right, well, yeah, it does.
So, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. Well, that's a huge reveal. Peter Allan Fields is the best thing that happened. And this episode is my favorite episode because of that. But apparently he got shut down because of other assholes.
And so it's a much more interesting thing, and it's why Odo sort of assumes that she was the murderer, and Dukat was probably in on it, and that it was better played just to play close to the vest and keep Kira away from the Cardassians, and all of that stuff. So, I mean, all of that was fed into the story, and it was a very noir turn for the story. I mean, that particularly is a very Philip Marlowe sort of turn. And yeah, it was frustrating to Michael Piller, who was the showrunner, that Rick Berman cut it. I believe at Ira Bear's either enforcement or suggestion that Ira Steven Bear, he speaks well of the episode, but he always speaks about how well it's directed. I think there was just some issues with, I think that Ira Steven Bear is a hack, but there's some things that I don't understand what was going on in the writer's room, where you have such a clearly great writer as Peter Allan Field, and I don't know if he just didn't play well. I don't know if he was not fun to hang out with, or if he was a total just a caustic person. I don't know, but
it could be just because he's a really strong, opinionated guy who probably doesn't want to see a whole lot of changes made, and maybe I don't know. I can only imagine if you've got that kind of resume over that many years. You've done so much work, and then these little pissant guys who were doing spec scripts, 2 years ago for Next Generation, want to do all sorts of other stuff. Then he probably isn't the most cuddly guy. I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I still stand on Peter Allan Field's side the whole time.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're all on the side of quality,
talent. Oh, you always got to side on talent,
right? Because I looked into this, so you were saying that Ira Steven Bear was the one that was against the extra thing and then kicked him out.
Rick Berman it was Rick Berman's call, and Michael Piller said that it was Rick Berman's call and it was a mistake. And he said it's the biggest mistake that Michael Piller has seen Rick Berman make on the show.
Wow.
So I don't know if it was all out of, because I don't know why Rick Berman would cut the scene either.
Well, the other thing of the total unsubstantiated internet rumors that I found about Peter Allan Fields were that at the end of the season 2, when Ira Steven Bear came on as a full showrunner, he forced Peter Allan Fields out of the writer's room.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It could have been that he was really old.
Yeah, he was 81 at that point. So of course he needed.
Yeah, and he did continue to write for the show. Yeah.
He wrote some great scripts. Yeah.
But he was out of the room, and he wasn't breaking scripts.
Right.
He was writing finished screenplays, one of which with Michael Piller, one of them that's left, and then one of them is the best Deep Space Nine episode ever, and probably just pure on the page. Like no one else helped come up with the story or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're going to talk as this podcast goes on and the seasons go on. We're going to talk a lot about Ronald D. Moore and Robert Hewitt, but really, Peter Allan Fields is kind of where it was at.
Yeah.
He kind of he's the best, and this shows why he's the best and why he has the capacity to not just. It's not original. I mean, we're talking about how noir.
No.
Yeah, it's not an original script at all.
Right.
It's just.
It's doing its thing really well. That's what Wade said at the top. It's like and maybe that's what the show needed at this point was to do choose one thing at the outset and do it really well. I mean, I think we've had a couple episodes where I've said I don't understand what the thesis of this episode is supposed to be. This episode understood what it was supposed to be and executed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On that note, what do you guys think? You guys would have anything to change? You guys gonna Monday morning quarterback this one that much?
I got kind of a big one.
Okay, well, I don't have anything I would change until
really?
Until James brought in
leaving that script.
Peter Allan Fields had his scene cut by Ira Stephen Bear.
Uh-huh.
I was fully on board to be the counterpoint to James's Ira Stephen Bear as a hack. But I love Peter Allan Fields so much. So if he's the one that kicked out Ira Stephen Bear or cut his extra scene, I'm like,
I think he backed it up. I mean, I think that there was a feeling that he backed it up, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it makes a sense. It sounds like something that Rick Berman would have cut.
Yeah.
What I've learned about him.
Yeah. The thing I would change is that I would make it to where Kira didn't kill him in self-defense. That she just looks Odo in the face and she goes, I had a mission to kill a war collaborator, and I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a soldier. I was a soldier in a counterinsurgency taking over murderous genocidal maniacs. I killed a guy.
This is the first time that we have the same thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
You would have said that too?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I killed a lot of people. He was nothing to me. I killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And actually didn't think it was that big of a thing, but whenever you said I have a big thing, I thought you had something different. So
No.
I guess this is going to be a short segment because that was exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't think it was war. She was a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
I felt like they were sugarcoating it for some sort of I don't know. We don't need to have her be some sort of Pollyannish rebel, you know?
Yeah. They didn't want to show her as a cold-blooded killer, but she was a soldier, you know?
Yeah.
And she could give that a few good men lines. She could say, when Vatrick died, I saved Bajoran lives. The Bajorans are alive because he died, and that's the hard truth of it, and I don't feel bad about it. I feel bad about lying to you. She could have said that,
That works for me.
Yeah. I think by making it mealy mouths it a little bit, and I think...
Mealy mouth.
Yeah, and I think that you get there's this sort of revelation when the show lets you know that she did it, and they let it linger there without a defense for a little bit, and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, no, Kara was a badass.
Mm-hmm.
Kara got the job done, and now she's different. Now she's got a different job. It's a different time. I don't know why the show didn't just do that.
Yeah, I wish it had. Well, I'm glad that we don't have a lot of things to change about it because as these episodes have gotten better, we've talked about them longer. And
Yes, we want to revel in them.
Well, what do you guys think this is on the IMDb star scale?
Ooh.
This is episode 8, season 2. We have 598 people have voted on this particular episode, which is about 30 more people than the average for the season. So what do you guys think we're at out of 10?
7.9.
I'll go at 8. I'll do 8.
Both of you, 8.2. Neither one of you got it. It's 8.2.
Nice.
Oh, we are both still underballed it. That was over duet.
You guys lowballed it.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a.
Well, yeah, after season 1, I thought people were lowballing it, but you know what? You're right. People lowball season 1 because season 1 sucks. But people are coming in to rate these things across the whole board of the whole series.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it makes sense that season 1's going to be lower because
absolutely
everybody hates season 1 and season 2, honestly. If you go back and look up what the nerds say about Deep Space Nine, they'll say, don't even start watching till season 3.
That's ridiculous.
This season's inconsistent, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 episodes in season 1 that are pretty great, pretty good. I don't know how great they are. Like,
Yeah, you'd miss Duet. You would miss Duet. You would miss In the Hands of the Prophets, which
yeah,
is an informative episode about the whole mythos, if not.
right.
So, yeah, no, they're fucked in. They're wrong.
Duet stands up above all the other ones. I feel like the other ones, maybe I'm misguided because I'm only watching the first 2 seasons so far recently.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I forgot how great it gets better, which I'm willing to do.
Sure. I'm sure that I will say at the end of it all, when we're through 7 seasons, and I've watched every episode twice and talked about it for an hour on a podcast, and I make a top 10, I'm pretty sure Duet will still be on the top 10.
Yeah.
Right.
And probably Necessary Evil will be too.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
I definitely think we've already had 2 out of the top 10 with Necessary Evil and Duet.
Yeah.
One of the comments on the IMDb description is this person took the time to write, I don't know, like 1,000 words on this particular episode.
Well, we don't need all of them.
No, I'm just going to let you know. But the title of this 1,000-word review is Catherine Moffat is Bajoran Eye Candy. And then it gave it all the stars. And it was written September 2nd, 2013. So somebody...
It's written by a guy that she dated in high school, isn't it?
Is that Patrick's wife?
Yeah. Is Bajoran Eye Candy is a phrase that I haven't... We don't use enough, I suppose.
I hope I never see again.
Yeah. There's a quote from Mark Alimo that said that his favorite thing he did on Deep Space Nine is there was a day he went, it was the cut scene, but it was a day I went to work and just kissed Catherine Moffat all day. So
I wanted to see that scene. All right. Put everything down. I am in full support of the DS9 Blu-ray remakes that everybody's been arguing for on the internet. I want the remakes. I want the additional scenes with the Mark Alimo sex scenes
kissing
for
sex scene.
the episode called Necessary Evil. Can we get that done?
Yes. I will even buy it for that.
Mm-hmm. I will.
Yeah. So no, this has been pretty good. The next episode is a Cisco episode.
Finally. All right.
Where he is... where he is...
I'll watch the next episode.
Yeah, he's feeling melancholy over the 4-year anniversary of his wife's death.
Well, that's...
And he starts seeing,
okay,
like an apparition or something.
Yeah,
so.
It is not my favorite episode.
Okay.
I have not seen it. I watched like 5
We'll get into it, won't we, gentlemen?
Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
All right, well, is that it for this week?
I believe so.
I think so.
All right, well, 3 to beam out, then I suppose.
All right, see you next week.
Beep.
Whew. That was a good one.
Did you know that some Deep Space Nine podcasts have more reviews than us on iTunes? Doesn't that piss you off?
All right, hey everybody. So that was Necessary Evil. Wow. Okay. Let the Peter Allan Field's love fest begin. I guess this is a weird one to listen to. Yeah, and I hope you're okay with all this. The little bit of peaking there. Are we peaking? A little bit of the levels. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the sound on this one, but except I just did. Yeah, the Nick Meyer of DS9, everybody. Boy, do we love this. It's weird to listen to this episode where we're just so excited and like just gushing, and it's like, are we, I feel like, wow, I don't know, in the 5 years since we recorded this episode, just the Gen X in me is just embarrassed by how, sincere I was and effusive. But whatever. I love noir, guys. Yeah, just listening to myself. I get it. I like noir, and my delivery is different. But hey, you hear yourself on a recording and you cringe a little bit. Well, that just happened to me. Finally, after all these years of podcasting, I finally made myself cringe. No, that happens all the time. Yep. Are y'all okay with comic books? Because we get into that's something that we often talk about. In this one, we're talking a lot about Alan Moore and his Swamp Thing run. And hey, if you want to hear more Alan Moore stuff, go listen to that whole podcast we did on Jerusalem and Watchmen. Yeah. Foreshadowing, I guess. And this seems like the first time of doing these remixes, it really comes apparent in this one that, oh yeah, this is where I start taking extensive notes on just synopses, where I'm picking out details and I have to like, all right guys, let's go back and work through the plot. It's something I noticed in my note taking, a lot more notes, and I got more focused on going through plot points maybe than like early on in the ROA. But yeah. And I noticed in this one where by now we're kind of like, I guess post-duet, we're all like, wait a minute, Nana visitor. Early on, we were kind of like not the nicest to the actor. Now, like, she's starting to sing for us, just like the performances are coming through. I mean, this whole episode, we're just like, hey, Chris Farley showing this one, like, this is pretty great, right? And even liking it, it's hard to imagine... It's hard to imagine being this positive about something for the three of us. But, you know, hey, yeah, I do the Ferengi screaming. My guys, nerddom was a little more obnoxious to me. And we mentioned they're finally starting to set the seeds for the shipping between Odo and Kira. And we're not as negative about it as we ultimately end up being, but we know where it ends up, so then we're just more innocent, I guess. And then going back to Berman ruining everything by deleting the Dukat fuck scene. This is where I have some questions. Like, it wasn't clear to me eventually going back and hearing James talk about what has happened, whether what got cut was an actual filmed scene or just something in the script. But I went back into Memory Alpha to try to figure out, just like in the Michael Pill, everything James said was mostly true, but I guess it was filmed. So if they ever did a Blu-ray cut of this, James said he would definitely pick it up. I don't know if that's true anymore, if he would definitely buy a Blu-ray version of DS9 if it had this additional scene in. But from reading from Dukat, I didn't see where he said he got to make out with Catherine Moffat all day. But let's just say it probably happened. And who cares if it didn't? A bit of a nitpicking detail, but you know, whatever. I was curious. And then we get to did Ira Stephen Bear kick Peter Allan Fields off the writing team at the end of the season? Was it like a problem? Since this episode aired, I guess Peter Allan Fields has passed away. He's no longer with us. So I raised that question that maybe I saw on the internet that Bear kicked him off the team. I had to look back up to try to figure out where I was getting that kind of rumor. And I think it's just rumor, and it's probably not founded in reality. I found one bit of message board on the internet that was like, why did Peter Allan Fields leave Deep Space Nine? And I think it's just conjecture, because when Peter Allan Fields passed away, it was Ira Stephen Bear that even announced his death and referred to him as a friend. So I think I'm going to go about and say that my conjecture that maybe there was beef there or something, they didn't get along. I think I'm wrong on that. I think probably Peter Allan Fields just left the show because that's how writing in LA works. You know, sometimes you're on it, sometimes you're off. They bring on a new showrunner. He might not kick people off, but sometimes people just leave. And I assume that's what happened. I won't take this opportunity to call Bear a guy that was threatened by how great Peter Allan Fields was and had to get him off the show. That probably is not true, and it's an unfair rumor, and no one should ever say that thing that I probably just started. Yeah. So that's this episode. It was a fun. It's still, yeah, it's weird to go back and listen. This one is probably one of the better episodes. We say it's probably going to be in our top 10 for the whole show, and I guess it still holds up. This one holds up. Peter Allan Fields, man. I don't got much to say other than he's pretty great, I think. And we all agree that DS9 is pretty good in this one. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the remix. We'll put these out when we put them out. So all sorts of stuff still going on the Patreon, James and Hugh and I. And then we got stuff in the works for all this new Star Trek coming out with, Camp Picard Wait, Star Trek Lower Decks. I know people have asked, and it's been on the air for a little while. Hey, if you're listening to this, I'll let you know that's coming out. So, be aware of all the Kickers of Elves stuff and what we're doing. And talk to you later. All right, thanks. Bye.
Unlike Kira, I have never taken a life. I have never watched that last gasp of life, watch it leaving the meat and bone sack of mortal frailty. Recording onto my hard drive that semi-smart unwitting slave of food and shelter and basic survival, him or her looking into my view screens questioning why it came to me to mercifully end a brutal march of loneliness and depravity. Nope. Never took a life.